CNN's Ben Wiedemann now. He's in Baghdad tonight. He's been talking to members of the Iraqi army who are battling ISIS. Also joining us, retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, who commanded U.S. forces in Iraq from 2007 to 2009. So, General, let's talk about Kobani. I mean, the fact that it's close to being captured by ISIS, what does that say about the effectiveness of airstrikes?
Well, I don't think it says much about the effectiveness of airstrikes, Anderson, because we're talking about two different types of targeting. You're talking about precision targeting, which is what the aircraft that have been launched against Syria have done. They're looking at main targets that they can hit. What you're talking about in Kobani is an infantry force, a group of individuals on the ground. You are not going to fly over those forces and drop precision weapons on top of one individual after another. So we knew from the very beginning, I believe, that airstrikes in Syria were not going to counter movement, except movement in vehicles and in large formations by ISIS. And what we've got right now is house-to-house fighting, street-to-street fighting in Kobani, and airstrikes are not effective in that kind of an operation. It takes ground forces to counter ground forces when you're talking about urban combat.
General, how significant then is Jamshito mentioned artillery from high ground that ISIS has being fired into the city. Is that significant in this battle? And if so, I mean, I would assume those could be targeted.
Those are certainly targets. And I think what Admiral Kirby will likely tell you is they are searching for those kind of targets to counter the heavy equipment, the artillery pieces, the very limited number of tanks that ISIS has. Those are obvious targets, but it's once you get inside the city, and I think that's where we see the hand-to-hand fighting going on.
Ben, you're in Baghdad. You've been talking to Iraqi military. Obviously, a lot of questions about their readiness. What are you hearing and seeing in terms of how well they can actually protect Baghdad itself?
Well, Anderson, today we were at the western perimeter of Baghdad's defenses with Iraqi soldiers and officers, and what we saw is they seemed to be holding the line, but the situation they described was one of basically that ISIS is taking pot shots with snipers on their positions. They've tried a few hit-and-run raids, but it appears that they're not really focusing on that area at the moment. They're really focusing on towns like Ramadi and, of course, Heat, which they were able to take over a few days ago. So it's really a question of concentration. And of course, the area we were in to the west of Baghdad, about 20 miles, is not far from Baghdad International Airport. So that is fairly highly protected. But the area itself of Abu Ghraib is largely a Sunni area. And one person told me, yes, the army controls this area by day, controls the roads by day, but at night they pull back to their bases and ISIS takes over. So the hold on the capital is tenuous at best, but of course you need to keep in mind that ISIS until now has been most successful in taking over, controlling areas where there's a Sunni majority. Baghdad does not have a Sunni majority, it's a Shia majority, but there are areas around the capital and in the capital with Sunni populations, some of whom are sympathetic to ISIS. So when you speak to Iraqi military and security officials, they say their real worry at the moment is the possibility of more car bombs, more bombs within the city, in addition to sort of this looming threat on the western side and the southern side of the city. So it's a very complicated security picture, and many people wonder if the Iraqi army is up to the task.
And General Hertling, just very briefly, how close would they have to get in order to be able to strike the airport? I mean, do they have equipment, ISIS? Do they have artillery that can actually shoot a plane out of the sky?
Well, I'm not sure they have equipment that can take down an aircraft, Anderson, but they certainly do have equipment that could potentially launch artillery into the Baghdad airport. There are two towns close by that have always been Sunni strongholds, Iskandariya and several others, actually. And I think they're controlling the entrances to the western side of the city. But as Ben pointed out, it's not so much that is worrisome to the Iraqi security forces. It's actually the guerrilla warfare inside the city. I would guarantee you're going to see an uptick in car bombs and a lot of those kind of things, especially in the Shia neighborhoods.
Which we even saw, I mean, last time I was there a couple of months ago when ISIS was first starting to make advances. General Hertling, good to have you on. Ben Wiedemann as well. Be careful. Just ahead, a 4-year-old New Jersey